What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Step Bro to Step Bro podcast. My name is Tyler Chestoro, and today we are diving into a lot of different things. We're talking about ways that you can hack your brain in order to get out of your addiction. We're going to be talking about Sadia Khan and the scandal that she's involved in right now. A lot of great things to cover today, but first thing that I want to do is start out by letting you guys know that one of the things that I've just recently done is incorporate a 9-to-5 job in my regular routine. It's really great because being 5 years ago, being homeless, and now to be at this point where now I've incorporated a 9-to-5 job in my regular life, and then I've got these two other businesses is really great. And the thing that I wanted to mention was that one of the businesses that I'm working on right now, this is not with the coaching business. One of my other businesses that I work on is starting to grow as well. We're adding a couple of new clients to that. It's just really great because 5 years ago, with this addiction and just being stuck in life, broke, out of shape, just fat and just lazy, waking up at 2 p.m. I just look back on this sometimes and I'm like, holy moly, like how did I make this kind of a change? How did this change happen so quickly? And sometimes I just got to remind myself, like, you were spending all this time in the libraries pulling these books on neuroscience, and it's really just a testament to, like, when you are aware of what's going on in your brain, shit can happen for you like you wouldn't believe. Homeless to now here in the beach house, right? And building a business now. It's just amazing, and like I feel great waking up early. I've got more energy. Ways to keep my energy levels up that I never would have thought to do or would have taken the time to research, but now my curiosity levels are going up. It's like all this like momentum is now just it's like I feel like I caught a wave. So I'm really excited to share a lot of this stuff with you guys today in this podcast because my goal is to help as many of you as possible get out of your corn addiction, but also put you on a fast track to getting to that area in life that you want to be at. A lot of people that I've been talking to recently, and I've just recently started up all of my social media, just staying consistent and posting, and I'll take a look at some other people's posts on their advice to get over corn addiction. And I'll just see some of these people, in the comment section, and they'll say something like, oh, I just want to stop. I just can't wait to stop. I can't wait to stop. And then everything will be great. And in my head, I'm like, I've read the neuroscience books. I've read the books on what sexual energy. It's the highest, just so you guys know, sexual energy is the most potent energy that you can learn to redirect into other areas of life. A lot of people who don't understand sexual energy from a psychological standpoint and an anatomical standpoint will just kind of laugh at this and be like, oh, well, the sexual energy, no, that's only for sex. No, it's not. Sexual energy, a component of that is drive. It's like that feralness in men to chase things that they want. And oftentimes sexual energy is reserved mainly for reproduction, for chasing women, for impressing people and things like that. But but just understand that I always say this, especially if you go into the course, you'll hear me say this. You have the ability to want something, to drive for something, to lust for something, to fiend for something. And if you have that ability and you're addicted to watching corn, I say this a lot. People who are addicted to corn, to lust and things like that, it is actually not a weakness. Contrary to what people think, this is my conviction. A lot of people think that it is a weakness. It most definitely is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. The problem is that you are using it for the wrong thing in life. So this sexual energy, you can translate it into other areas of life. It sounds like such a simple concept because in a lot of AA meetings, SAA meetings, and things like that, you will hear sponsors, leaders of these chapters, you will hear them say, Well, just, you got to, become more interested in something else, put that energy into something else. But that process is actually more difficult than it sounds. It sounds good on paper, like, yeah, like I'm so addicted to this. Why can't I just become addicted to something that's more positive? Well, it's a lot more difficult than that. There are parts of your brain that need to be wired, that need to be adjusted. There are parts of your brain that are more malleable than others. What does malleable mean? It means it's easily changeable, like malleable, like Play-Doh in comparison to a rock, right? Play-Doh is malleable in the sense that you can take it and you can mold it to whatever you want it to be. Whereas a rock, it's harder to do that. It's almost near impossible with just your bare hands to mold it into what you want it to be. So there's parts of your brain that are more malleable than others. And if you learn to affect and not necessarily affect, but if you learn to kind of manipulate, I hate to use the word, but if you can learn to manipulate three parts of your brain, one of the three most malleable parts, quite honestly, you can then actually truly redirect your obsessive energy into something else. So I applaud, the sponsors and people that are a part of these chapters that say redirect your energy. But when they say redirect your energy, that process is a lot more difficult than it sounds. Thankfully, in this podcast, we are going to talk about it. I'm gonna touch on the surface level stuff because I want to give you guys as much value as possible. I know for a lot of you, you can't go into the course. A lot of you can't afford the one-on-one coaching with me. So I want to give you guys as much value as possible. If you're gonna sit here and watch this podcast and sit here and invest your time, I'm gonna make sure that I give you as much value as possible to make sure that you go away with actual actionable practical steps on how to get over this. Okay, so let's talk about this. The number one word it's actually two words, but the two words that are kind of combined into one phrase that we tend to overlook when it comes to our corn addiction or our lust addiction, our cheating addiction, there are two words that are, like I said, combined together that are very, very overlooked. In fact, this might be your first time hearing these two words. Okay. So the two words that I'm going to say is is basically your brain network that detects important internal and external stimuli and directs attention to them. The two words are called your salience network. Okay, this might be your first time hearing that. Salience network. And what your salience network is responsible for, it is responsible for your attention, it is responsible for your focus, it is responsible for assigning emotional and motivational value to a stimuli. What is a stimuli? For example, corn is a stimuli. Having good food is a stimuli. Substances can be a stimuli, okay? The other thing that your salience network is responsible for is that, and this is the part that we're going to talk about the most today, it is responsible for directing your brain's attention on where it should go, where it should allocate its focus. It's responsible for managing your emotions and also promoting your resilience. But let's backtrack here and let's talk about where the attention should go. Why does your salience network do that? And what is exactly does it look like in the brain? What is this salience network? So the word salient means the most noticeable or the most important part of something. So if I were to say, out of all of these cookies in the cookie jar, the most salient one is this colorful rainbow looking one out of all the chocolate chips. So if you've got a cookie jar, you see that rainbow cookie, that one stands out because it's got bright colors. It catches your attention the most. It is the most salient. So because it's the most salient, your brain automatically fixates on that rainbow cookie. Now, the brain's spotlight is what we're going to refer to as your dominant focus. So I almost want you to think of your salience network as your brain's spotlight. Okay. So non-addicts, let's talk about non-addicts for a second. So non-addicts occasionally can move their spotlights, right? Now, we all know, like, if you haven't guessed by now, your spotlight right now is on corn, and you're trying to move your focus away from that. You're trying to be more invested in other things that are more productive for your life, whether that is getting back in shape or mending a damaged relationship with your family or your partner, or maybe you want to start making more money, or you want to start that side business. There's a lot of different things that can become salient to you, but right now, the primary focus where you direct most of your sexual energy is going into corn. So, for non addicts, those who are not addicted, especially to corn, they have the ability to move their salient, their spotlight, their salient network, their spotlight. So I almost want you to think of, like, remember, if you ever been to like seen like a movie production, and you've seen somebody with the big old spotlight and they're like moving it around, making sure that it's on, the lighting is correct and everything like that. Sometimes the light moves during the scene. When you have a salient network, a spotlight for a non-addict, the light is actually very easy to move. Okay, if my focus needs to go over here, I can move my spotlight over here if I'm a non-addict. And if my focus needs to go in this direction, I can very easily take that spotlight and I can move it into the other direction. Okay, it takes me a little bit of time. I'm not quick with it, but I can still move it. Now, let's talk about addicts. Let's talk about, if you're watching this and you feel like you're an addict, let's talk about you for a second. Addicts struggle to move their spotlight. Okay, they struggle actually to even control it. So I want you to still think of that same scenario where we're in a movie production here and we've got our spotlight. And for addicts, they can't necessarily take that spotlight and move it to something else. They try to, and this is what happens when we say I'm done watching, right? When we say I'm done watching, we shift our focus towards something else for a while, but what ends up usually happening, we move our spotlight, and then almost instantaneously, not even a couple of days after, maybe a couple of hours, what does it do? Snap, it goes right back to what it was fixated on in the beginning. So this particular spotlight for the addict has this tendency to snap right back to where it originally was. And for an addict, that's very frustrating because we want to take that spotlight, we want to move it into the other direction. We want to aim it in the direction of having a good life. We want to start that business. We want to do a lot of things in our lives, but for whatever reason, we can't move that spotlight. It's like anchored to the ground. It's stuck. Every time we try to move it, it just jumps back. Now, I talked about addicts. I talked about non-addicts. Now let's talk about something that you might want to be that I've noticed over the years. Let's talk about highly successful people. So how do I know about highly successful people? Well, I've met probably close to around 300 of them. And I'm talking, when I say highly successful people, I'm talking about people that are in good health, have net worths of probably $1 million or more, have good relationships with their family, with their partners, and all of that. We're talking about people that are generally really well rounded and have succeeded in a lot of different areas of life. How have I been able to meet that many people? Okay. 5 years ago, I was homeless. Then I did not know a single person that was highly successful. When I was an Uber driver, driving 12 hours every single day in the same exact hills that I live in right now, I would drive these hills and pick up these people, oftentimes who were multi-millionaires, and I would drive them down the street. I would drive them to dinner. I would drive them to the airport. I would drive them to their business meetings. And I got to see the difference between highly successful people who got it right and highly successful people who are missing things in their life, like they don't have a good relationship with their kids, or they are just, or they're living paycheck to paycheck, believe it or not. Even though they live in a multi-million-dollar home, they're still living paycheck to paycheck, or they're fat and out of shape, or they've got other problems that we could just go list on and on. So I saw the clear difference between the two. let's not talk about the ones that have like all the different types of problems, because you don't want to be that one day. You want to be the type that is well-rounded, can provide for his family, his or her family, and have good relationships with your kids and be in great shape, right? That's the kind of life that you want to live and be able to live exactly where you want to live. What I noticed about those people and their salience network is that they train their brains to spotlight their priorities and the right priorities for their craft or their mission. So they were not affected by friction. So like scrolling on social media or alcohol or something like that, it did not phase them. They had trained their brains to move their spotlight at a moment's notice, right? And once they moved it to the right places, they fixated it. They knew how to find what the right priorities were in life. And it's almost like they just anchored it themselves. Like literally took screws and just anchored that spotlight and said, this is where this is going for the rest of my life. And that spotlight stood there forever and never deviated away. That's what I've noticed about them. So how did they do that, right? Thankfully, after meeting close to around 300 of them, and then also going back and learning neuroscience and educating myself on how they even got to a point like that, I think I found the answer. And I think I know exactly how to teach you how you can start modifying your salience network to focus on the number one priorities that you've been trying to do. So the first thing that I want to mention to you is that there are actually different variations of the word salience network in other cultures. In psychology, in American and modern American psychology, we use the word salience network. But in other cultures, they call it something different. For example, in Buddhism, they call the salience network tana. And tana is the craving desire that ultimately leads to people suffering. Okay, so it's like temptation or lust in a lot of cases. In Sanskrit, they actually call this not tana, they call it klesha. And what is klesha? So in Sanskrit, what klesha is, it's the destructive mental state that is clouding your judgment and your clarity. Okay, so this is a little bit different. It's not so much focused on like craving and lust, but you can see how it's very similar, a destructive mental state, whereas Tana was kind of like craving desire. So when we talk about Tana, craving desire sounds like it comes more from the heart, whereas when we're talking about Klesha, it sounds like it's coming more from the mind. And then let me throw another wrench into this even more. In Hindu, they call it asakti. Now, asakti is a little bit different. A Sakti is more kind of like a neutral type of thing. A Sakti deals more with attachment. So there could be good attachment, there could be bad attachment, there could be different types of attachment with a Sakti. So a Sakti is essentially just your attachment. Now, is your attachment good or bad? That's different. So they have different types of ways to describe it in different cultures. Now, why is corn highly salient? Okay, well, I focus on corn, but really you can apply this to lust or cheating or whatever. But why is corn highly salient? Okay, I'm going to explain. So go back to the cookie example of the rainbow cookie amongst all the other chocolate chips. Your brain focuses on the rainbow one. Why? It's for the exact same reason why corn is highly salient, because it is high stimulation. So you see that rainbow cookie, you go, whoa, I've never seen a rainbow chocolate chip cookie. You've never seen that before. Right? So corn is also the same way. Corn is high stimulation, stuff you've never seen before, right? It's also a huge emotional charge to it. There's a big emotional charge to watching corn. You're watching one of the most intimate moments happen on a screen. The other thing is that makes it very highly salient is that corn gives you a quick reward. A lot of people don't realize that it's the equivalent to basically, especially if we're I don't like to say the actual word because I don't want to get banned, but choking the chicken. So if we're choking the chicken, and we're finishing, that's an intimate moment. That's literally the equivalent almost to having I think I can say it. I think I can say it. YouTube should let me say it. Having sex. And at the same it's a quick reward. So any thumbnail, any video, anything that you want to watch, any kink, any whatever you want to watch, you can watch it and you are not told no. So it's a very quick reward. Whereas in real life, if you liked a girl or you liked a guy, you had to put in some work. You got to like seduce the person. You got to like, put in that effort to try to get them to sleep with you. But with corn, you don't have to. You just type in what you want to see and then you get that intimate moment. And so some of the other reasons why corn is very salient is because it's very low effort. I want you to remember this. Anything that is low effort and high stimulation is often very salient. So corn, low effort, doesn't take much to type in what you want to see, high stimulation once you start watching. Gambling is also very salient. That's why people have problems with gambling. Very low effort to pull that what do they call those things? Oh my gosh, I was about to say pinball machine, not a pinball machine, the slot machine. Very low effort to pull the slot machine, high stimulation with the thought of potentially winning. Low effort to be at the tables and just say hit and they give you a card. High stimulation on the possibilities of what happens if you win. The other reasons why that it's very salient is because it's private. A lot of the things that we watch is very taboo, very forbidden type stuff. Taboo, forbidden type stuff is often very salient, right? And then another reason why it is salient is that it's predictable. Okay, you know exactly what you're going to be getting. For a lot of people that deal with anxiety, we like things that are predictable. We don't like guessing what's going to happen. Like we like knowing what's going to happen. This way we can mentally prepare for these kinds of things or just kind of relax a little bit. I know a lot of people who will watch the same episodes of their favorite Netflix show over and over and over and over again. They'll constantly keep on watching it. And in my head, I'm like, why would you not move over to like another show? You already watched this one 17 times, but it's the predictability of it. You already know what's going to happen. You're just kind of going through the ride again, but it's not as intense when you didn't know what was going to happen. So those are some of the reasons why corn is very salient. Okay. Now I want to, before I segue into teaching you how to modify your salience network, these are what I call the landmines of relapse. Do not ever forget these. These are the most common things that happen when you relapse. It is boredom, so you have nothing to do. Your brain craves stimulation. Loneliness, so you're lacking a real connection in life, and that's making corn feel like a substitute for intimacy. Another one is stress and anxiety, huge one, because corn becomes a coping mechanism to escape pressure, to escape worry, anxiety. The fourth one is fatigue or insomnia. These are things that cause you to relapse. So low energy, poor sleep. This actually weakens your willpower for the little of it that we rely on every single day and increases cravings. Remember that. And another one is negative emotions. Boy, do I see guys get down on themselves when it comes to their negative emotions. So shame, anger, sadness. So guys, when they get these emotional lows, it pushes them towards corn for comfort. And that's what often prompts a relapse. Unstructured time. So if you're spending way too much time in your bedroom and not spending enough time going out and doing productive things like going for a walk, staying healthy, staying in shape, going to the grocery store and buying the right kinds of foods. Another one could be environmental cues. So being alone in familiar relapse settings, like I said, this could be places like your bedroom, this could be your bathroom, and it doesn't even have to be locations. It could be times of day, like late at night, or it could be when you actually have a physical stimuli present, like having your phone with you in a particular location, so you can see how there can be a combination of the two. Another one, I think we're on number 8. There's actually 10 in total. Triggers from media. Okay, so sexualized ads, TikTok, Instagram, or just movie scenes that kind of reignite these urges. The ninth one is rationalization. Now, this is one that I see happen with guys a lot, also with women as well who struggle with corn. They always kind of internally tell themselves, just one more time. One more time is not going to hurt. Or I earned this today because I had a long day. I got through all of my stuff. Like I earned this moment. So rationalization. And what it does is that it undermines your progress. Your progress should be the thing that you lean on that makes you say, I don't want to do this. Like even though I had a hard day, I shouldn't be doing this. But when you go through that rationalization landmine, that's what prompts you to relapse and you start saying, yeah, but this is just one time, it's not going to hurt. And then the final thing is previous habits and rituals. So, not rituals like what you might be thinking of, but just like old routines that you used to have, like staying up late or endlessly scrolling online or certain apps that you use. These kinds of things can cue the brain to expect corn. So the brain says, I know that when you go on TikTok and you spend about like 6 minutes on TikTok, and you're in the bedroom, I know it's corn time. I know that. Let's get ready for corn because that's what I know that I'm going to get. So even just previous habits and rituals can prompt your brain to think, okay, it's almost like training a dog, right? Like if you start to like pull out the leash and everything. How many of you have dogs where you pull out the leash and your dog gets all excited because he knows walk, 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 walk? Exact same thing. When you're laying in bed and you've been on TikTok for like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, your brain already gets that feeling like, oh, okay, I know once you do this for a little bit of time, I know exactly where you run to. I know you run to the hub, or I know you run to these videos that you shouldn't be watching. Okay, so those are the 10 landmines of relapse. So how do you move the spotlight? How do you train your brain to adjust that spotlight? So there's three things, all right? So this should, like I said, I was gonna give you I was gonna give you practical ideas and tricks on how to do this. So I'm gonna give you a 3-step process, okay? This is how you can modify the salience network. Number one is you must lower your tolerance. What do I mean by that? You need to get used to low stimulation again. Like I said, why is corn very salient? Because it's high stimulation. So you're used to stimulation that's all the way up here. You got to get used to stimulation that's down here again, because stimulation up here is the only thing that's doing it for you. That's why you run to corn. You got to retrain your brain to get used to the stimulation down here. So what are some low stimulation things that you can do to ultimately lower your tolerance? You could do more walking, go for walks. You could just sit in your bedroom in boredom. I know that sounds crazy, but just literally sitting in your bedroom and just observing what's around you. You could even close your eyes if you want, but just sitting there and not engaging in anything, just sitting in the silence, in the boredom. It is very low stimulation. Same thing when you're going for a walk. The most amount of stimulation that you're going to get is you're just taking a look at familiar areas around you. If you just go walk outside your front door, most of us know what the first few steps of our, front door look like. So there's very low stimulation. We already know what we're going to get. Okay? You could also spend some time like cooking, take up a hobby. A lot of these things are just very bare minimum, low stimulation type stuff. If you're really good at this, you just start doing low stimulation stuff all throughout the day. Because the two things are going to happen here if you start doing low stimulation stuff throughout the day. Number one, you're going to pack your day. And I always say, if you want to get over corn addiction, pack your day and get yourself extremely busy so that you don't even have a chance to get busy, if that makes sense. The second thing is continue to do low stimulation stuff so that your brain is satisfied just with the low stimulation that you're giving it. And it almost works like a math equation. If I get 5 low stimulation things and 1 high stimulation, if I'm doing 5 stimulations every single day, my tolerance is going to start to average out and it's going to start to come down. So if I'm doing corn once, but I've done like 10 different low stimulation activities, my tolerance is going to come down and that's going to be the average. And then if I do 10 another day, my tolerance is going to come down even more, then that becomes the average. So that is number one. We have to start lowering our tolerance. The second thing is that we have to start creating new salient targets. So what are you emotionally invested in right now? Do you have some goals? Do you is there a hobby that you're already interested in? Maybe you don't have to take up another hobby, just spend some more time on one that you already like. But whatever that thing is, it has to be high stimulation. It has to have emotional charge to it. It has to have things like quick reward. It has to have things like moderate levels of effort for you to do. Your brain needs to believe that whatever that thing is that you are going to do instead, it needs to believe that it's worth chasing. So a lot of guys come to me and they're like, I just wish that I could start a business, but I just can't because I'm so busy like with corn, and then it just like makes me confused and tired. I get brain fog. I can't even focus on my business. So I say, okay, let's just start with your business in the beginning of the day. Why in the beginning of the day? Well, because when you're working on your business, it has all the components of it. The high stimulation, you're problem solving, you're using your brain, you're thinking through problems. How is it is emotionally charged? A lot of the times guys pick, businesses that are just kind of like cliche and like not exactly what they want to do, but when they pick the right ones, it's like emotionally charged because it's like, yes, I like to do this. Before I even got into all of this, all of the businesses that I tried failed. All of them failed. But why did this coaching program that I have, why does it work so well? Because this is emotionally charging for me. This is what I'm passionate about. And you've got to find stuff that you're passionate about as well. If your passion is candle making, go make some fucking candles, because ultimately it's going to work out for you, because every single day is going to feel like an array of emotions of happiness. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. You just got to be a little bit of patient, okay? Corn teaches us not to be patient, so you got to work on the instant gratification levels, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But you got to go in doing the thing that you love the most. Do what you like the most. Don't just do the cliche businesses, or if you want to try a particular diet or you want to go like on Ozempic and you just hear all these buzzwords, don't do it if you're not passionate about it. Do what you are passionate about. If you don't like getting on the stationary bike, don't get on the fucking stationary bike. If you like to walk instead, like I did, for an entire year, I walked 7.5 miles. I averaged 15,000 steps every single day. Walking was the thing that lowered my tolerance and got me down to a low stimulation level. Walking was my thing. You go find your thing that for you. Maybe it's lifting weights. Maybe it is the stationary bike. Maybe it's surfing, something. You got to find what your thing is. But whatever it is, like I said, your brain needs to believe that what that thing is worth chasing. Okay? So if you have nothing new right now to target, your brain is going to default to corn. So you need to spend time thinking about what some of those new salient targets are going to be. Finally, number 3 is you have to show your brain. Your brain acts like a child. It learns by what it's seen. So your brain, your brain works like a little kid, okay? I teach this in the course. Your brain is like a child. It is going to go based off of what you do. I know some of us might say, well, Tyler, like, aren't our actions based on what our brain tells us? Yes, but our brain learns new behaviors based on the actions that we initially do. So our brain doesn't learn new habits prior to the actions happening. Our brain learns after the actions occur. So it's on us to make sure that we're doing proper actions to teach our brain this is not something that we should do, or this is something that we should do. So like I said, it's observing and then it copies. So show your brains new patterns. It, again, like I said, it takes time to teach a child something. So be patient with it. Show it patterns so that it can change the target. Those are the 3. In case you missed it, it's lower your tolerance, create new salient targets, and then show your brain and treat it like a child. All right? So those are the that's how you can change your salient network. Now, let's talk about the 3 dimensions of decision tendencies, because a lot of the time we have a very hard time making these decisions. I get a lot of people that say on social media, or I see people commenting that say, I want to change, but I just can't change. I can't make that decision to change. And unfortunately, you have to understand what kind of a decision maker you are if you want to be in control. So I always say, if you want to be in control of your mind, you need to know what your mind does. You need to be more self-aware about your mind and what parts what your brain is doing. If you can do that, if you can be more aware of what your brain is doing, then I got good news for you. You can master it. In the same way that when it comes to decision making, you've got to know what kind of decision maker you are, so that this way, when you're presented with a problem, when you're presented with that moment where you're like, I just can't, I just can't, for whatever reason, I can't make the decision to stop watching corn. And that is because you don't know what kind of decision maker you are. So there are three different categories, and every single one of those categories has two different subsets. So you're either one or the other. So you can see that there's like 6 different possibilities to cover, and thankfully we're going to cover that right now. Let's start with the very first one. Okay, so the first one of these categories, I call it the know category, KNOW, the know, like to know information. So in the know category, as a decision maker, you are either an operational decision maker or you are a conceptual decision maker. So somebody who is highly operational decision maker is a super productive individual. They are very, very much about completing assignments. They have a preference for efficiency. Um, you know, but the problem is that they have too little attention on the big picture type of stuff. Now, people that are highly conceptual, though, are thinking about the big picture. So operational is like, we can be efficient within our day to day. Like we'll knock this out every single day we come to work. Like we're in the weeds of this. Like not a single thing is going to be out of place. We're all about it. That's operational. The problem is that it's very kind of like a nearsighted kind of thing. But conceptual is more farsighted in the sense that if you're thinking, you think about the big picture if you're more conceptual. And the role that you play as a conceptual decision maker is more like strategy based. So, but the problem is that conceptual decision makers spend too much time analyzing the future, and they're not spending enough time in the weeds of the operational type person who's like all about being efficient. And there's too little attention. If you're the conceptual decision maker, there's too much attention on the decisions of today. So you're either operational or you're conceptual. You gotta be a little bit real with yourself and be like, well, what am I? What kind of decision maker am I? Am I operational or am I more conceptual? The next category, I call this the think category. So in the think category, you are either risky or you are either cautious. So people who are highly risky in the think category, they are very high reward type people, despite the fact that there is a high risk exposure here. So they're like, I know it's a big risk. I know we could probably like fold the company, but we're going to try it anyways because of the potential reward. So these kinds of people are focused on opportunity costs versus, what an obvious risk might be. And their mindset might be more along the lines of like, this is necessary for success. Sorry, these risks are necessary for the success of our company. But what they tend to do is they tend to downplay the threats. They tend to overlook them. Now, cautious people, okay, as you might guess, they're very careful decision makers. In fact, they rarely ever support a very high risk decision. Their role is to ensure that their plan B is all in place in case, risky moves, if they do decide on it, if they fail. So these cautious people are like, okay, what's our plan B? if it doesn't work, if this doesn't work, like what's our plan B? We got to have our plan B in place. Like let's just make sure that plan B is good, and let's make sure that plan A is, all good. Like we're just very entirely cautious. So when it comes to your way of thinking, are you a risky thinker or are you a cautious thinker? Now, just because corn addiction is linked to risky behavior doesn't necessarily mean that a corn addict is a risky thinker. They can all often sometimes be a cautious thinker, because corn for some people kind of helps people relax. It's a mood improvement type of thing. So highly anxious people, and that is often associated with being cautious. Highly anxious people who are worried, I see a lot of them, they use corn to kind of like numb themselves out and reduce that level of anxiety. So just because, you see these corn addicts who are being risky and they're cheating and they're lusting and all that other stuff, doesn't necessarily mean that every corn addict is a risky person in the think category. So just remember that. So you got to decide, am I more risky? Am I more cautious? The final category in this, when it comes to decision tendencies, is the do category. D-O, the do category. Now, in the do category, you've got to ask yourself, between the two, what am I? The first one is, am I deliberative? That's the first side of it. The other side of it is, am I impulsive? Okay, so what is deliberative? Because impulsive is a word that we hear a lot, but what is deliberative? Deliberative, people that are highly deliberative, they are not bothered by complex problems because they welcome that. They embrace them. They enjoy thinking through these difficult problems just as much as they enjoy finding the solution to them. And the problem with deliberative people in extreme cases, they can sometimes be guilty of analysis paralysis, right? People who are highly deliberative have the tendency to spend all the time trying to solve the problem without implementing any action, because their forte, the thing they love to do, is spending time solving the problem. Whereas impulsive doers figure it out as they go, right? They're decisive, but their decision quality can sometimes suffer, right? So they prefer, not to waste time. They're like, let's make a decision, let's do it now, right? They have a bias towards action, right? Let's do it now. Why is this taking so long? They believe that decisions need to be made when there is no clear answer. Deliberative people are a complete opposite. They will spend all the time that they need trying to figure out the solution to the problem. So between the two, figure out which of those two that you are. And what's ironic is that whatever your job title is, here's what I notice. The higher your title in a company, the more likely you are to be, let's just jump back to the first one, the more likely you are to be a conceptual thinker. Now, it's not widely studied on whether the position, the higher up position, made you a conceptual thinker, or if you became a conceptual, or if you were a conceptual thinker going into it. There's not a lot of studies on that, but generally CEOs, directors, executives that are studied on what kind of decision makers they are. Remember, conceptual is people who think about the big picture. People who have higher titles are more conceptual thinkers. And if you ask me personally, I think the job title, and not necessarily like the title, the actual work that you do, forces you to become a conceptual thinker, even though you may have been an operational one before. So when it comes to your decisions on what you do to implement, how to stop watching corn, how to become, how to redirect into something that's more, that's better for your life, you got to think like, what kind of thinker am I? And speaking of thinkers, I want to jump into things, because there is a secret number out there. If you guys want a little secret here, there's a secret number to quit corn. Now you might think like, what's the secret number? Is it like number of days? Is it like time? Is it like number of seconds? And if that's your guess, the answer is neither. This secret number is actually a percentage, and the number is 13.5%. So let me tell you a story really quick. Lego almost went bankrupt in 2004. I didn't bet you didn't know that. That's true. The company that we know today, Lego, almost went bankrupt in 2004. What happened is in order to try to save the company, by the way, Lego had seen all this level of success. They were doing so well. They couldn't keep up with the level of success and keep outdoing it. They were just growing so fast and becoming so popular that their success basically outpaced who they actually were. So in 2004, they faced bankruptcy. They bring in this 34-year-old guy to be president. In Lego's 70-year history, they had never had a president who was 34 years old. And what he did is he had this advisor who would kind of consult him and let him know what the best plan of action would do. And so the advisor fed the 34-year-old president this idea to cut every department's goals, tell them to scrap everything, and from now on, they were only going to have one goal. So the president gets on a call with everybody and he says, guys, from now on, every one of you managers of every single department, your goal from now on is 13.5%. And everybody kind of was like scratching their heads, like, what 13.5%? Like, that's how many like hours I got to work or something like that. And he said, no, from now on, your guys' goal is 13.5% return on sales. That goes for marketing, that goes for sales, that goes for product development, that goes for all of you. All of you collectively, your goal is 13.5% return on sales. The company was dumbfounded because they had never had a goal like that before. They had created their own goals within their own departments, but now they all had one clear goal. Okay. So the managers were all aligned on the same goal, and they basically said, okay, this is how we're going to survive. We all got to come together as our own separate departments, but all work as a team, as one company to get to this 13.5%. So communication improved. I see guys try to quit corn by doing the exact same thing. Like all of the, like you just like all of the departments in your life, you try to have your own goals for it. So I see guys try to install blockers, download apps, doing positive affirmations, and that stuff could work. But what guys are doing is they're avoiding their 13.5%. So what do you really need to do that you're avoiding because it's too difficult? You got to ask yourself that. That's how you're going to get out of your addiction. And that's how Lego got out of their potential bankruptcy that would have bankrupted them in 2005. And we all know Lego exists to this very day. So that's a little trick for you, is focus on your 13.5%. And speaking of toys, I want to tell you guys actually a story about this woman that I had just recently read about in 1955. There was this little old lady. Her name was Ruth, and she was the owner of a toy company. And she was, she made her living making toys, and she didn't have a whole lot of money to her name. I mean, like in today's dollars, like it's, she does well for herself, but she's not mega rich by any means necessary. She gets a call from this TV executive, and mind you, this was 1955. And the TV executive goes, "Hey, I just want to let you know I've got this TV show that I need a sponsor for, and I think you guys would be the perfect people for it. By the way, it's going to be a 52-week commitment, and you're going to do television advertisement, and I need $500,000 from you if you want to be the sponsor." So Ruth went over to her husband to consult with him. She told the TV executive, "I'll call you back and I'll let you know." Ruth and her husband, Elliot, they go to their marketing manager and they say, "You think we should do it?" They consulted the marketing manager because the marketing manager always kind of never really agreed with them, always pointed out the what ifs. So the marketing manager said, "Yeah, it's gonna hurt us if it doesn't work. I mean, it's not gonna end things for us, but it's not gonna be good if this doesn't work." So 45 minutes later, Ruth picks up the phone and calls that TV executive and goes, "All right, let's do it." So 1 month goes by, no return on sales. 2 months goes by, nothing. 6 months goes by, nothing. At this point, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what did we do? We lost all of our money." $500,000 at the time is the equivalent right now to about $6 million. And that's all the money that they had from their business. And they get up to 10 months, nothing happens. It wasn't until the 10th month that this TV show all of a sudden, and at the 10-month mark, it was Christmas time. So holiday stuff started popping off and people started buying the toys. This TV show kind of broke out and got really big by December. You might be wondering, what TV show was it? It was none other than the Mickey Mouse Club. So Ruth and her husband Elliot, who owned this very small toy company, all of a sudden became the toy giant Mattel. And not long after that, a few years later, they launched one of the most iconic toy brands of all time, Barbie. So what is the moral of the story here? And how does this apply to you as an addict? As an addict, we sometimes expect our investments of our time to pay off quickly. I'm putting in all this time. I put in a week of not, touching things, and I'm not stroking the chicken or anything like that. How come it's not working for me? Trying to stay clean and then relapsing, and we get frustrated. Just remember this. Somebody had to wait 10 agonizing months for their $6 million investment to pay off. Be patient, my friends. Be patient. We really have a really hard time with staying patient a lot of the time. It's really difficult, man. It's because corn teaches us instant gratification. It teaches us that we can have any moment and any intimate moment that we want. We could choose what we want to see, who we want doing it. It's just so instant. And it teaches us that, okay, one of the most intense moments we can have, like an intimate moment, right? It's just like so intense. And so we think that other areas of our life that are not as charged up should be quick as well, like our 9 to 5 job. Like, why am I not making more money or getting in better shape? Why am I not healthy? Why do I not have a six pack? Why don't I have big arms? Like, why am I not this yet? We get frustrated because one of the most emotionally charged experiences that we can have, we're getting satisfied instantly. We have this tendency, guys. Humans are psychologically wired to hold on to their possessions. Did you know that? Humans are psychologically wired to hold on to their possessions. So when I see TV shows like Hoarders, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's psychology at work. We don't like to give up our possessions. So we do these things like the 6-month rule. If you haven't touched it in 6 months, you should throw it away. Does that ever work? Do we ever really, really do that? I don't know a lot of people that actually commit to doing that. And it's because thousands of years ago, our ancestors didn't know when their next food was going to come up. The ones who hoarded basically were the ones that survived. So if they saved their food, like, they got to survive, and the ones that survived got to spread their seed and continue the population. We hold on to things as addicts. We hold on to things that make us survive. Now, you might be thinking, well, corn doesn't make me survive. In a way, it does, because corn, food, both satisfy what's called the lizard brain. It's the part of your brain that just needs the most basic stuff to survive. They call it the 3 F's: feeding, fighting, fornicating. So you might be like, well, fighting, defending oneself. So those are the 3 things that you need, the lizard brain needs, in order to feel like I'm going to be okay. I need to feed. I need to be able to defend myself. I need to be able to reproduce and, continue my lineage. Okay. So that's why we tend to kind of like have a hard time letting it go. The good news is as I just taught you right now with the salience network, is if you can find a way to find something else that satisfies a lizard brain that says, okay, I'm going to be okay because I got this thing, then corn kind of just falls off and becomes irrelevant and you no longer feel like you need it. Okay. So we talked about that. We talked about decisions. We're going to get into Sadia Khan in just a moment. So let's end the whole let's rope in this whole psychology talk right now and let's finish this off. We've been talking about decisions. Let's finish this now with decisiveness. So, in 1995, there was a district manager of a Home Depot out in Oklahoma, and he calls the corporate office. He came into work. He calls the corporate office in Atlanta, and this is what he said. Guys, a bomb has just leveled the federal building. I just sent all of our inventory to the emergency rescue workers. It was the Home Depot in Oklahoma right after the Oklahoma City bombing. So Home Depot's margins, I don't know if you know this, but they are like razor thin. They buy in bulk so they could pass the savings on to the customers, but their margins are like razor thin. So that district manager already like kind of like set in his mind, he's like, I'm going to get terminated. Like, I know that I need to help these people, but I already know that I'm going to get terminated. I literally just gave away $70,000 worth of our inventory. But the exact opposite happened because the community heard about this and got a very positive response. In fact, the corporate office of Home Depot actually promoted the guy, actually promoted him for that good work. So sometimes when you got to make decisions a lot of the time, and because that district manager, his heart was in the right place and he knew that that was the thing that he needed to do despite it being a difficult decision, lives were on the line potentially, and he knew that the inventory that Home Depot had was something that could help maybe save some lives. So without thinking about it, knowing that potentially later on that he could be fired, he made that decision and it ended up paying off for him. So sometimes you're going to have to make decisions fast, and you're going to ask yourself sometimes, like, do I give in? Do I give in? Do I give in? Because those urges come quick in the same sense, not no pun intended, and those urges emerge quick in the same way that these bombing, the Oklahoma City bombing happens out of nowhere as well. So you've got to make these decisions. You've got to be decisive, and you've got to do it with good intentions and a solid heart to make sure that the decision that you're making is one that's going to benefit not just you, but a lot of the other people around you. All right. So let's talk about Sadia Khan. Oh boy. So just for those of you that don't know what's going on with Sadia Khan, apparently Sadia Khan is this kind of like relationship, high value man coach who is kind of being accused, and there's a lot of evidence suggesting that she was a side chick to a married man. There's voicemails that have been leaked of her cussing out the wife of the married man, saying some very nasty things to her. And then there's also some other things about her, not even being a psychologist. Somebody did a video that shows if you go to her website, it doesn't even mention that she has any kind of credentials or anything like that. Let me talk really quickly about the side chick thing. I feel like everybody has a past that they are not proud of. Now, whether or not Sadia is ashamed of that past or not, we don't know. Only she does. I think it's actually kind of shameful that we haven't, that she's done these kinds of things and maybe not necessarily owned up to it, or at least hinted at it or admitted to it. One of the things that like I have tried to do myself, the best that I could, is try to let you guys know that I've made a lot of mistakes in the past as well. I haven't been the best of people. I've hurt a lot of people as well. And I try to be as forthcoming and honest about that as well. I try not to disclose anything that's going to, harm, my like safety or anything like that. I try not to like give details, to where other people could get hurt, but I try to be as forthcoming as possible. And I feel like Sadia just didn't do that. She didn't disclose, like, yeah, like I went through some stuff, like I struggled through some things. I wasn't always the best person to, the wives of married men. And like I was involved in some of these things. And like I get it, for a woman, it like that bites you harder. Because the stigma about women having to be like perfect, like pure princesses, like I get it. It's difficult. Like, since it's not an easy decision to be forthcoming about that. So to that, I would say she's got to really look in the mirror and be like, man, like I need to start being very honest about some of the things that I'm not proud of, because I feel like everybody's understanding like about these things. Like we all go through some things, we do some things that we're not proud of, and if we feel like, hey, I don't do anything wrong in my life, then great. You can touch grass when you're good and ready. But one of the things that I want to defend Sadia on really quickly, and I know this is going to get me a lot of backlash, and thankfully all two of you watch my YouTube channel, so this should be okay. Um, Maybe I'm biased about this because I'm an addiction coach, and I don't have like the psychologist credentials or anything like that. But I know a lot of people, guys, that are smarter than these credentialed people. I know a lot of people who are smarter than doctors. I know a lot of people who are smarter than nutritionists. I know a lot of people who are smarter than other people that have these credentials. To me, so these degrees, these credentials, all of that stuff, there's nothing that you can't learn in your school or your university or anything like that. There's nothing that you can learn that you can't Google or research or find out that information on your own. I feel like there are a lot of people that are smarter than credentialed people. Okay? Now, Sadia doesn't make always the best points in my opinion, but she does know a lot, and she is pretty competent when it comes to some of the relationship coaching. Now, I don't know whether or not Sadia's studied like neuroscience or anything like that, but I've read 20,000 pages on neuroscience. I feel like I have a good understanding. When she explains things, she doesn't explain things from a psychological level. She speaks to the emotional part of your brain, which is your amygdala. She knows how to tap into that part and explain it to you that way. I haven't learned how to do that. Maybe I will someday. But I know how to explain things from the psychological level, from the neuroscience type level. That doesn't mean that she doesn't know neuroscience. She very well much could, but the way that she's explaining things makes a lot of sense. It's actually very good. I actually applaud the way that she explains things sometimes. She kind of does what Andrew Tate does. Andrew Tate will take an idea that is actually generally accepted amongst a lot of men and women, and he's even said this publicly. He purposely puts a twist on it to strike, like, to like literally like create like a mind-boggling type of reaction from people. So, look, to me, a degree just means that you took an exam and on your knowledge and you passed. That's what it is. When I look for people on who to listen to, I look for who demonstrates that they know their shit. Sadia has done that to a degree. No pun intended. To a degree. I have a BA, guys. To me, it's been useless. I have an MBA. To me, it is useless. I've used my MBA once in the last like several years that I've graduated. Once I used a chart that I used. Okay, so as for the side chick thing, fine. We can all go after her for that. Go after her for that all you want. But when it comes to her credentials, guys, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people that are smarter than doctors that have been practicing for 50 years, who are still stuck in the old Western medicine mindset. I know a lot of people that are smarter than nutritionists who still, who will still tell you that salt is bad for you. It's not, guys. So yeah. Anyways. All right. Well, thank you guys for sticking around with me. If you guys are really serious about getting out of corn addiction and then redirecting that sexual energy, that obsessive energy into something more productive for your life, this way it doesn't fizzle out. This way you can get something out of it and put it into stuff that you want to do for your life, get in shape, start a business, fix things with your partner, just become a better person overall. You're going to want to check out my course. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And make sure, guys, do me a huge, huge favor. I really want to start going live and doing live Q&As with people. If you could do me a huge favor, I need to get my followers up. So if you happen to watch this video, if you could do me a huge favor and follow me on some of the other platforms. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, I'm on YouTube as well, and it's at Tyler Chestoro. For the great majority of them, it's at Tyler Chestoro. If you could just give me a follow, that would be fantastic. Who knows? I might do a surprise giveaway for anybody that does help me get to the certain number of followers that I need in order to start doing some lives. And yeah, go get your wins today. Remember to do those 3 things that I talked about for your salience network. That's going to be the key in putting you in the right position to start doing some amazing things in life. All right. So go get your wins today, and I will talk to you in the next episode.